What's happening, guys? So I got a question from a subscriber the other day about a video idea, and he wants to know kind of some of my tips and tricks on kind of staying healthy and reducing injuries, especially as a heavy lifter like a power lifter. Now, before I get into the topic of this video, I do want to say, if you guys do have questions like these, please never hesitate to put them in the comments in any video that I do. If you'd like me to cover some certain topic on powerlifting or whatever else, I am more than happy to do that. If I think it's a good question that I can cover, I will gladly do that for you. So I just wanted to throw that out there before I get into this actual topic of today's video. So, in terms of tips and tricks to avoid injuries and try to kind of keep your long-term health going, the number one thing I would say is technique. Now, when I say technique, a lot of people think, okay, you know, let me check out somebody else's squat and they're a really good squatter, so if I just copy their technique, then I'll be good to go. No, 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 no. Technique comes down to each and every individual. Your individual structure and your anatomy and everything that comes into play, it's not going to look the same for everybody, but there are a lot of things you can do with the lifts to make sure that you're staying tight and staying safe. And that would be way too much to cover in this video, but there are different videos out there. I have done a video on squat technique in the past. Layton Norton's got really good videos out there. If you just look up his name and then squat or bench or deadlift on bodybuilding.com's YouTube page, those are excellent videos. I highly recommend those, so check those out. But the biggest thing is make sure your technique is good, because if you have really sloppy technique and you're lifting heavy weights, it's just a recipe for disaster. Okay, another thing that comes into play in terms of keeping safe, make sure you're progressing volume reasonably, okay? Now, I talk about volume quite frequently and how increasing volume is kind of the key to continually making strength gains over a period of time. You need to make sure your volume is continually going up. And that's true, but that does not mean that you can just go from squatting 1 time per week, benching 1 time per week, and deadlifting 1 time per week, and now all of a sudden you're going to do it 4 times a week. Okay, that's too much. Your body cannot handle it and you will get injured. If you go from just a beginner program and jump into something like small off, it's a recipe for disaster. Okay, you might be okay, but it's not smart. Not only are you most likely going to get hurt, but you're going to really set your volume threshold really high right off the bat anyway, and it's going to make further progress down the road more difficult. So always try to get away with the least amount of volume that you possibly can. The least amount of volume while still making progress. So that way you have room to grow down the road. So don't jump your volume up too high and take it progressively in a reasonable fashion. Now, another thing that comes into play, recovery. You need to make sure that you're getting sufficient recovery so that you can train hard frequently and not get injured. You need to make sure your nutrition's on point. You need to make sure you're getting your sleep and you're getting your rest and you're getting in your water and your protein and everything else. Recovery is very important. So if you're not putting an emphasis on your recovery, you could set yourself up for injuries down the road. Okay, another thing that comes into play is going to be mobility, but at the same time, I think that people take mobility a little too seriously sometimes, or maybe seriously is not the right word, but just a little too aggressive with it, because they don't necessarily know what they're doing. And I'm not going to say that I do. I'm actually in the process of getting some help in terms of trying to figure out what some of my imbalances are and try to get this fixed. So it's not just as simple as stretch a lot and foam roll all the time and all these different things that people do. I mean, they can be helpful, they can also make you worse. If you have a muscle group that's really underactive and it's causing you pain, but it's causing you pain because it's really weak in comparison to the rest of your muscles, if you stretch that muscle out, you're only going to exacerbate the problem. So you have to be really careful with this. If your muscles are really tight, yeah, they probably need to be stretched, but at the same time, maybe they're just hurting you because they need to be strengthened and not necessarily stretched, and there's other areas that need to be stretched. So you just got to keep that in mind. It's not just as simple as go out and stretch all the time, because that's not necessarily going to help you. It just kind of depends on what the problem is. Just keep that in mind and look for help if you need it. Always get professional help anytime that something like this comes into play, because it's really going to help you out tremendously. All right, so those are the main things I wanted to cover. Just keep in mind that, you know what, injuries are a part of the process. You know, it's the name of the game. If you do this stuff long enough, if you lift hard, you lift heavy, you're gonna get hurt. It's gonna happen. There's nothing you can do to avoid it, but you can do these things to try to minimize the chances of getting hurt. But like I said, you know what, even if you do everything absolutely perfect, you're gonna get hurt. It just happens. And when you do get hurt, just make sure you take enough time to get recovered so that you don't make the problem worse and you can come back at full strength rather than always kind of bouncing back and forth between injuries. I'm guilty of this, and most people are too. You just try to come back too fast, and it's always a mistake to do that. So just keep that in mind. All right. If you guys have any questions about this or anything else, just leave them in the comments below, and I'll be happy to get back to you. Otherwise, I will see you in the next video.
I'm addicted to the love that you're giving.